Welcome back to our Reach Higher Facebook community deep dive, where our mission is to encourage, to equip, and to empower entrepreneurs who desire to better lead and develop their teams with a biblical worldview.
Yes. And you may have noticed that the past 2 weeks we've been MIA from the deep dives, and that is due to 2 weeks of 8 Gap Traps training that we did.
It was very good.
Yes, it was wonderful. And we just want to thank each one of you who sacrificed your time to join us on that training. And our prayer is that you received something of great value during our time together.
I like the feedback that was given, even during the presentations. Just the impact that was and the value add that was given was awesome. And even at the very end, when we sent them the homework, helping them to develop their growth plan, they're using that information. So they had something that they could take with them after the training. So between now and the next time we do a training, they'll be able to working on their growth plan. That's so good.
Yeah, so we do hope that you have begun working on your homework and you've become intentional about at least beginning the process of developing your growth plan. And we would love to hear from you to know how that's going.
Oh, yes, definitely. Now, if you notice this, our weekly newsletter that we send out, or weekly email, I should say, that we send out, on Monday, there was a question that was asked, is what's one word that helps us to make wise decisions? What's one word that helps you, that helps me to make wise decisions? What's that one word?
And one word, I believe, is values.
Definitely, values. The standard by which we measure, the standard by which we make, the standard by which we manage our decisions. Values are so important because it's the compass that helps us in our decision-making process. Values are what gives us root. They're what gives us conviction. They're what gives us foundation.
Yeah, and when you think of the word values, you think of value. And when you think of value, you think of those things that you hold as high priority, those things that are of great worth to you. And so when you have convictions, you have established your values, you have set in place the things that are priority for you, those things that you assign value to, you assign worth to, and that helps to guide you along your journey in all of your decision making, whether it's personal, whether it's in business, no matter what it is, you have those values in place.
I like the fact that values are the decisions before the decision. Values helps us to really think through, like you said, what's important, what's worthy of my attention and my affection.
And my time.
And my time.
And my energy.
Yes. And so when we can sit down and think through what is really important, what's really priority, then we're actually taking the time to make our decisions before our decision. It's important for us to make our decisions early. I remember the story that John Maxwell told in one of his stories, one of his books. They had just had a wonderful time presenting. I don't remember what it exactly was, but they were flying back home and they had some turbulence. And you can imagine the shock. At one moment they're laughing, then at another moment they're like, wondering what's going on. But the pilot was able to get things steady. As John was getting off the plane, he said to the pilot, "How did you do that?" And the pilot said, "Well, I made that decision a long time ago. I made a decision early. During my training, and during the simulation, I made the decision as to how I would respond if a situation like this should arise." And that's what values do. They help us to decide early so that when the situation does arise, we can simply manage our decisions that were previously made.
Yeah. And what I like about values being the decisions before the decision is when circumstances arise, it's easier for you to make decisions because of your values. So you don't waste time. You don't get confused. You're not, spending time going back and forth because you've already determined what your priorities are.
That's true. I love the fact that values are what really helps you to develop your no muscle and your yes muscle.
Yeah.
We must know when to say yes or when to say no and how to say yes and take control of our lives. Because if we don't have values, then we're going to run the risk of saying yes to the bad and no to the good.
Yeah.
And we're going to end up hurting ourselves and others in the process.
Yeah. So that's why it's important for us to, as a result of the values that we have in place, to be able to make the decisions early. And then, as you said, to manage the decisions and to manage them well, but also just to measure your decisions.
Yes, that's good.
Reflect on the decisions that you've made, because when you take the time to do that, it allows you the room to audit your values. In other words, you get to reflect and to determine, are the values that I hold dear to my heart, are the values that I have set in place as my convictions, as my priority, as those things that are of great value to me, are they truly beneficial?
That's good.
Because we can have bad values. We can have values that do a disservice to what we're trying to accomplish.
Yes. And it's interesting as it relates to business that whenever there are bad values, you end up having bad vibes and you end up having bad culture. For example, you end up in a culture where you focus on people's weaknesses instead of people's strength. You focus on the bad instead of the good.
Yeah. When you don't have the proper values in an organization, there will be a culture of distrust.
Yes. And where there's distrust, there's disengagement, and disengagement will lead to poor performance. It will lead also to poor client experience.
Yeah.
So
you don't want that.
No, you see, sometimes we see an organization having loyalty, client loyalty or customer loyalty, and we see an organization having high engagement, and we see an organization having high performance. But sometimes what we don't really pay attention to is that they have some strong and some clear values. And that is the reason why there is consistent growth, there's consistent productivity, because they have values that are unshakable, and they know that they'll go to war, they'll go to the mat regarding these values.
Yeah, and those values basically determine what they will do and what they won't do as they're making their business decisions.
Oh yes.
They know what they're going to do. They know what they refuse to do, because if it's outside of the values that they've set in place, it's a no-go.
Yes, and here's the thing: values are unique. So that's what separates the business from its competition. Whenever a business doesn't know what their values are, it's almost as if they want to be just like everybody. And if you notice, the businesses that really stand out are the businesses that differentiate themselves from the competition based on their culture, based on their focus. And it's the same thing for our lives. We cannot just be average. Values are rooted on biblical principles, godly principles. So when you have a principle that's timeless, when you have a principle that's as strong and as clear as biblical or godly principles, you're able to build your life on a solid foundation. A business is able to build a business that will last. It's there year after year.
Yeah.
So what's the challenge?
So, well, the challenge is pretty simple. We want to know, have you taken the time to work through your personal values? Because our convictions drive everything that we do in life. So if you have not taken the time to determine what you believe, what you hold dear, what your values are, what the line in the sand is, then you're going to be tossed to and fro. Confusion. So have you taken the time to work through what your uncompromising values are?
Yes.
And if you haven't, when will you?
Yes.
That's the challenge. If you haven't, when will you do it?
And here's something else. Who will you share it with? One of the things we talk about is it's better when we do it together. That's the reason why I love the monthly training, because we're doing it together. We're interacting.
Yeah. So accountability is important.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's something that we've said over and over again.
And so you just had a slip. You said the monthly trainings. We hadn't shared that yet.
Oh, sorry.
So I guess now is the time to share it.
Yes.
After our experience with the 8 gap traps training, we enjoyed it so much, and we just know that there was a lot of value that was added, not just by us, but for us, by those who were in attendance. And so we were talking, and we've decided that we're going to do a live training on a different topic each month, beginning the month of September. So if you were unfortunate and you missed the one that we just did over the past 2 weeks, then you do have an opportunity to catch many more in the future. So stay tuned to the announcement and be sure to jump on this time.
Yes. We appreciate your commitment to personal growth. Remember, in order for growth to be transformational, it must be intentional. And you are responsible for your growth. I am responsible for my growth. Tanya is responsible for her growth. We cannot entrust this responsibility to someone else. We must take responsibility. That is what it means to be created in God's image and in God's likeness. We are responsible. We own that which is ours, and we run with it, and we develop and we grow so that we can be and do all that God has called us and created us to do. So I want to say thank you so much for those who are signed up for our weekly email. I want to say thank you so much for those who will be joining us in the future in September for our training. Please listen out for more, especially in the month of August. I want to say thank you for those who have signed up to the Facebook group and are making contributions through comments and so forth. We really appreciate this community, and we look forward to serving you again in the future. Bye for now.
Bye.